This lesson is meant to be pretty quick. It's just pretty much one to make sure that we revisit the distributive property and kind of look to see where the proportions that we work with kind of step forward a little bit. So remembering again that what we do with distributive property is anytime we have two values on the inside with the outside value meaning the other two, that we multiply that 3 times x. And again, it's not 3x plus 2 because you got to multiply 3 by 2 as well, but it's 3x plus 6. Remembering that when you do this, again, it's not 5x minus 4. It's actually 5x minus 20. Now, the good news about distributive property at our level is that most of the numbers that you deal with will be positive numbers, which means the sign will always come down the same. You just have to remember to multiply everything on the inside by whatever's on the outside. So understanding that that's 4x plus 12, not 4x plus 3 is really your biggest thing. So that's where we were in terms of where we're going with the proportions, is understanding that this is the same as that. It's just got a 2 in parentheses instead of just a regular 2. So you're still doing 2 times x. You're still doing 2 times 7, which is where that comes from. And then the last phase of getting used to distributive property is understanding that this is the same. Just because the number's in the front versus the back, it does not matter. So for example, 2 times 3 is 6. But if I move that 2 to the back of the 3, 3 times 2 is still 6. So the multiplication does not change. You just have to kind of get used to it, or you could rewrite it if you wanted to by putting the 9 in front and then going from there. For example, just rewriting this as parentheses 9, parentheses x plus 2, and then working it out. But you don't have to do that as long as you still understand it's going to be 9 times x and 9 times 2, which is 18. So again, it does not matter for distributive property where that number is. The more used to it you get, the better you're going to be. And really, that's what it's all about, is just you kind of making some of these things a natural occurrence. Again, kind of like tying a shoe. First time you learned to tie your shoe, it probably took you forever. And then now you do it without even thinking about it. You do it actually while doing other things, which means it's an automatic nature for your hands, your fingers to do whatever they're supposed to do, and you don't even have to worry about it. So this is more what your proportions today will look like. But again, it shouldn't be that bad, because on this side here we simply have the distributive property, which turns into 2x plus 6, and then on this side we have 4 times 6, which is 24. The difference in today's work is that it ends up looking more like a home problem, and from there you do what you've been taught to do. So nothing really changes. It's just a matter of making sure that you've got an understanding on what we're doing now. So 3 and 6, of course, meet to make 18. 2 meets x. 2 meets 1. From there, again, do what you've been taught to do, or do what we've gotten used to doing. And then everything else just kind of works out the way it's supposed to. So what we talked about yesterday was proportions, where we learned to cross multiply. X meets 9. And 6 meets 6. This turns into 9x. This turns into 36. You divide by 9. You divide by 9. You get x equals 4. There is no need, really. Again, when it comes to these, using the parentheses is important. But when it comes to these, if you're good enough, feel free to understand that you're doing 4 times 6, which is 24. Feel free to understand you're doing x times 8, which is 8x. The parentheses, as yesterday was, as I told you yesterday, to make sure you use parentheses or learn to use parentheses, is just for the sake of having that in your skill set. Because if it is just 4 times 6, we know that's 24. If it is just 8 times x, we know that's 8x. Then you divide by 8 and you get your answer, and you don't need to do all of that work to get it done. For example, again, if it is just 2 times 9, we know that's 18. If it is just 6 times x, we know it's 6x, and you can just go ahead and work out from there. The reason the parentheses was made part of your work yesterday, or hopefully part of your work yesterday, is because of this. This is not just one thing times 3. So on this, I need to say that x plus 1 meets 3. And then notice, hold on before I do that other part, and you could put 12, but again, however you want to do that is up to you. This looks just like this. And so that was what that was for, is just to make sure you understand again. Because again, when most people do this, they think 3x plus 1, they bring down 3x plus 1, they get the wrong answer, but it's actually 3 times the whole thing of x plus 1, which means it actually ends up being 3x plus 3 equals 12. And then from there, again, everything else just kind of falls into place. Once again, if you want to, feel free to put 5 times 6 because we know what 5 times 6 is. That's fine. But whenever you have two things, the advice that I give you, again, you won't need it right now because you're not really going to see it yet. But the advice I give you when you see these things later on is to make sure you slow down, because everybody will write, or the people who miss it will write 3x plus 4, but it's not 3x plus 4, because if 3 meets the whole part of x plus 4, it actually ends up being 3x plus 12, which then from there you need to do the rest. I'm sorry, I have the answer in my head. 0 minus 2 doesn't work. That turns into 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. 2 minus 1 is 1. You end up with 18 equals 3x, ending up with 6 as your answer for whatever's going on. And then again, for this, you got to just be careful. And this looks crazy, but it's really not. The good news is we've seen this kind of stuff enough times. Oh my, I'm missing all that stuff. I'm getting tired. X minus 1 times 4 equals 2 times x plus 2. And then after that, you go ahead and do your 4 times x. You go ahead and do your 4 times 1. You do your 2 times x. You do your 2 times 2. And now notice again how this is still something that we've worked on. We move our smaller x over to our larger x. And all the algebra is going to continue to do is put more and more things out of your reach, just with other stuff like distributive property or proportions or anything like that. But again, the bottom line is, once you kind of get used to what's going on, once you have practiced all the processes that you really need and taken them seriously enough, I don't think it's really that hard to do. So go ahead and hand that sheet in and get the second part and start working on it or whatever. But for the most part, that's all I got for you today. Take care and talk to you later.